All right. Um, I'm glad you're all here. Um, we have a few more that might join us, but we might as well start. My name is Chinyere Emmanuel Ebwe, a professor here. I've been here for the last 36 years. June this year will make me my 37th year at McGill College, so I've been here for quite some time. I'm a professor of economics and finance, and I'm so glad that we're here. The session is being recorded for the benefit of those who are not here. This class is called War on Drugs. Um, it is an interdisciplinary course that addresses or discusses the war on drugs from the perspectives of public policy, its history, the history of drugs and the war on drugs, as well as the economics of the war on drugs. Now, before I get into the details of what we're going to do, uh, let me first of all just talk about the way the class is going to be conducted. This is a 100% online course. And so you're going to be assigned the readings, particularly on a daily basis. But there's something good about this. In about 3 weeks, about 2 weeks from now, or 2.5 weeks from now, you will complete 3 credits. The course is not that easy, but it's also not a very difficult class. You will complete 3 credits of your Gen Ed or an elective, just for the knowledge of it. For some of you, it might be a required class. I've seen um, majors in psychology and social work saying that it is required for their degrees, which is good, because those are two areas where understanding drug addiction and drug use are very, very useful. So this is why the course is a very interesting class. But we have made this class in such a way that um, it is neutral, it is ideologically neutral. Uh, but going back to methodology, this is going to be 100% online. So I'm going to assign you classes, practical on a daily basis, instructions are practical on a daily basis, so that you know what to study and how to study it. Uh, there are previous, uh, excuse me, office hours that I might open for you so that you can get some lectures on this, but there are also videos, YouTube videos that provide you very good instructions and lectures on the war on drugs. Okay. Besides that, there are quizzes, no, not quizzes, there are discussion forums, and there are homework assignments. I suggest you do those discussion forums and complete those homework assignments on time, okay, so that you don't fall behind. And then there's only one examination at the end of the class. And this exam is going to be a written exam. There's no multiple choice here. And then there's going to be a project, okay? A research project, but the research project is pretty simple and easy to complete. For the research project, which I will announce this time next week, uh, you have to read, and let me say very clearly, you have to read 7 articles, 7, not less than 7. You can do more than 7 if you want, but not less than 7 articles about uh, drugs, well, the war on drugs, so there's illicit drugs. And these 7 articles have to be based on a very narrow topic. If you do an article that simply says the war on drugs, its social implications, I will not accept it. But if you write an article on the social consequences in Brooklyn, New York, of drug use by middle class families, then I will accept that. Okay? Because it's a narrow topic, it's related to an area. But then if you choose such a topic, say the sociological consequences of drug use in Brooklyn, I would want to know why Brooklyn. You will need to say contrast it with, say, other parts of the country and explain maybe there's a difference in terms of what happened in Brooklyn compared to what happened in the Bronx or compared to what happened in Pennsylvania. That is what I would expect to see. Okay? Uh, so, it has to be on another topic. It could be the drug trade in India in the 19th century. Uh, and I would look at it and say, okay, what is the significance of the drug trade in India in the 19th century? Yeah, but it will be an acceptable topic. So this is the kind of thing that I'm going to be looking for. So um, having said that, I'm going to now describe essentially what this class is going to talk about. Now, as you all know, in the 1970s, the president, actually in the 1980s, the president Reagan declared a war on drugs. But the war on drugs has been going on there even during the time of President Nixon. But these are the modern issues, the modern historical um, declaration of the war on drugs. I mean, societies have struggled with drugs even before Nixon. Nixon became president in 1968. But even before that, America has struggled with the war on drugs. You can go back to the prohibition in the 1920s. And of course, you can go back to China in the 19th century when drug addiction was a big problem in China, addiction to opium. And then you can go back to England in the 19th century when the society, also struggled with the abuse of a drug like opium. And you can go back to Europe of, again, the 19th century when there were issues about the use of opium, not so much as a drug for recreation, but also as a legitimate drug for curing disease and of course its implications. So the struggle against what we call illicit drugs have been there for centuries and have been recognized for centuries, but the approaches have been different. And there were times when things that we call illicit drugs today were used legitimately, and we're not going to control them. Uh, But what is classified as drugs for the purposes of this class would include things like alcohol, would include things like caffeine, coffee. These are addictive substances. The um, the government seeks to regulate them, except something like coffee. Coffee is addictive, the caffeine. So they're not included in the regulated drugs, but they're still addictive. But it's still addictive. But things like codeine, cocaine, alcohol, even tobacco. Tobacco is addictive, but it is not psychoactive. The same that it does not change the your mood, doesn't change the way you function psychologically, except it hooks you and then you use it. So now we're going to take a philosophical approach. Well, my intention in teaching this class is not to indoctrinate you about what is wrong with the war on drugs or even what is wrong with drugs, but some of the consequences of using drugs are discussed. For example, when people drink a lot of alcohol, they become drunkards. And drunkenness can lead to violence, can lead to violence against others, can lead to also behaviors that are harmful to the individual, and even physiologically. If you drink a lot of alcohol, it could affect your liver, it could affect your heart. If you take a lot of cocaine, if you take cocaine and become addicted to it, it will affect also the rhythm of your heart. Opium is a drug which minimizes pain, and throughout history, from ancient Egypt, I'm talking about 2,000 years ago, I'm talking about 1,500 years ago. Okay. Uh, I mean, 2,500 years ago, opium was well known as, and up to 100 years ago, up to 150 years ago, opium was used as a painkiller. It was used as anesthesia. Okay. Opium, as we know it, has a biological name, and the biological name is Papaver somniferum. And somniferum actually comes from the Latin word somnatum. And somnare in Latin simply means to sleep. And so somniferum in Latin simply means makes sleep. And so essentially, it was well known from time in the sense that it was used as anesthesia. And it is still used as anesthesia today. Uh, people inject it as heroin, but as anesthesia, it is morphine. If you have heard about morphine, morphine actually comes from opium. Okay. Um, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical doctor, so I don't know if there are other forms of what do you call it, anesthesia that are used. I know that chlorine, chlorine-based anesthesias have been used also. So those are not, opium is not an anesthetic. However, there is legitimate cultivation of opium. What is happening is that there's excess amounts of it that people sell illegally and use it recreationally. The same thing for cocaine. Okay, cocaine comes from the coca leaf, which originates in South America, and the ancient Incas chewed on the coca leaf um, to mitigate hunger, especially in the higher mountains. And so they chewed on it. They believe it was given to them by the gods to help them. Europeans came and saw it and extracted the ingredients in it. And one of the ingredients that was extracted, of course, out of the cocaine, was used to make Coca-Cola. Essentially, a mixture of the extract of the coca leaf and also the kola nut of West Africa. The kola nut of West Africa has a very high content of caffeine. If you are not used to eating kola nut as a cultural thing, like in my culture, if you eat a lot of it, you will not sleep for a very long time. It will keep you awake. That's what the kola nut does. And so the Europeans came, besides using the coca to keep the natives less hungry as they walked, which was the source of exploitation. They extracted the kola nut and the coca and make them, and hence you have Coca-Cola. Okay. But of course, after a while, the cocaine, the intoxicating substance in Coca-Cola was taken off because originally the substance in coca, or the cocaine in coca, was mixed into an alcoholic drink, and which made it give people a big high. So all along, the what we call drugs, some of the things we call drugs, have been used legitimately. I don't care which one, even methamphetamine. Okay, if you look at allergy medication, they contain drugs that can make you drowsy. If you have ever had to take Valium, they contain drugs that can make you drowsy and make you sleepy and make you bold. Okay, so the issue has been that people abuse these drugs and use them for recreation and also they have social consequences and they also have health consequences. They have financial consequences. When people, use drugs, marijuana, cocaine, opium, and what have you, they can become incapacitated and they're not able to function mentally. They miss work. Uh, they have social consequences, behavioral consequences. They become violent against members of family, against neighbors, and what have you. So there are consequences. And then, of course, there are also physiological consequences, which can also cause them to be less productive in the workplace. And so these are some of the reasons why we have the war on drugs or the struggle against the use of drugs. Now, we will approach this study in a very neutral fashion. Very neutral in the sense we're going to look at different ideological perspectives. The way people look at drug use and drug addiction also influences the kinds of policies they propose. And the kinds of policies they propose depend on their ideological perspective and the way they describe a drug user. Okay, for example, we're going to look at a rational perspective. We're going to look at the, the perspective of historical materialism, which is the Marxist perspective. We're going to look at the conservative or what you call the deviant perspective. The deviants who will look at a drug user and a drug addicted person and say this person is just a bad person. This person is deviating from social norms. Social norms, dictate that you have to behave in a particular way. And those who use drugs are those who are deviants, and therefore they should be punished. Okay. And other approaches in perspective follow. Now, those who take the rational, what you call the liberal perspective, simply feel that people use drugs because they want to solve certain problems, okay, or because it's enjoyable. And so people drink alcohol because it's enjoyable. I mean, that's very, very clear. If you drink it in moderation, if you drink alcohol in moderation, it will not lead to behavioral changes. If you drink alcohol in excess, it might, lead to behavioral changes, but also might affect your liver, and cause other health problems in the sense of, physiological deterioration of a person. And so, but nevertheless, people, take drugs, including the non-psychoactive drugs like tobacco, because they enjoy it. It's enjoyable, okay? It's recreation. And so at the end of the day, uh, if somebody is taking drugs and missing work, the liberal person will say, hey, wait a minute, give them some treatment, provide them education so that they do not take these things in excess. And, take that approach, okay? Approach of education. And so that's the perspective. Now, the historical materialism, which is the Marxist perspective, would simply explain that the best thing the best way to explain drug use would be to look at the reasons why people are doing it. It's an escapist approach. The working class alienated from the um, system of production because of their alienation and their frustration. They go and take drugs in order to escape the feeling of exclusion from the distribution out of labor and the workplace. And so they take drugs. And so if you can just create a more equal society where everybody is able to buy into the system of production and identify as uh, a member of the system of production where output is distributed equitably, then people are not going to be frustrated. I don't think it's always the reason people take drugs. Nevertheless, it is a perspective. Okay, it is a way people think about it. And it's for us now to differentiate or to identify the extent to which the use of drugs or the abuse of drugs is a response to a sense of alienation from the system of production and distribution. For us to ask ourselves, is it always so? And try to draw boundaries. And so throughout this class, I would expect each time you read any of the documents, and please read the documents because I'm going to refer to those documents when I ask questions in exams. Okay? And so let me stop here and ask, does anybody have any questions?
I got a question, Professor.
All right, go ahead.
Um, are we gonna ever going to be able to eradicate drugs in society?
Um, my attitude is no. You may never be able to eradicate it. So the dilemma here is one, you will not be able to eradicate it. This is number one. And so you continue to struggle. The question is, if you're not able to eradicate it, is the struggle worth it? And the answer might be, um, it might be something that we need to contain. We need to mitigate its consequences. Yeah. Those who are taking it as escape, we need to educate them that this is not going to hurt you, and suggest alternatives. Those who cultivate drugs and distribute them, it's a means of economic survival. And so should we find them alternative production activities so that they do not um, engage in this production, which is ultimately harmful to society and to themselves in a way. You know? And so like diabetes or high blood pressure or even just a deviation in society, this is something that we might conclude that needs to be managed. But to totally eliminate it, I don't think so. This is my attitude. But my objective in this class is not to indoctrinate you that you can or you cannot.
Gotcha. Thank you. Because I know what these guys they just allow you to use recreational marijuana drugs. So this is not helping us contend it because if I can, legally go to any store and then just buy some recreational marijuana, let's say, somebody was sick, needs some oxycodone for pain killers and then get addicted to it. So I think, he's gonna be a problem to even containing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's, I personally have never been in favor of legalizing marijuana, something like that. But in other societies, like in Holland, in Sweden, in Northwest Europe, they've gone from even legalizing opium to looking for a way to contain it. But it's like prostitution. In some of those Northwest countries, it's legal. In America, it's illegal, but people are still doing it. You know, and so uh, in Northwest Europe, in some countries, and maybe they're still doing it. I'm going to try to substantiate that. They even distribute needles, you know, because the sharing of needles, gives rise to certain kinds of disease, especially during the early days of AIDS. When people shared needles, it transmitted AIDS. And so in some of those countries, they began to distribute needles so that people do not share needles as a means of containing it, which is what we call a harm reduction approach. Okay, so excuse me. So elimination is not going to be possible. Nevertheless, my attitude is containment is still justified.
Right. All right.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, Professor. This is Andrea. Yeah, this when I started taking this class, I work med surg, and this class has really opened my eyes to so much that is going on presently in my unit. Patients that comes in. Now I can look at somebody and I can like, okay, I know this is that, this is the other. I mean, the more I read and the more I meditate and continue focusing on everything I'm reading and underlining and really doing my research, this class has been such an eye opening to me that words can even express. I really, really enjoy learning everything I've been learning so far, and let me just keep going in that direction.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And this was really my aim in designing the course 10 years ago, is to really expose people to information so that they can see what's going on without being judgmental, and at least being able to see other perspectives and knowing the foundation of what we call drugs today. And understand the history also, because we're going to look at historical perspectives. Uh, has it just been economic benefit of the use of drugs? A lot of economic benefit throughout history, one way or another. And each time attempts to eliminate these drugs have also run against the economic profits for whoever is making the profit at that time. And so I also want students to see that historical development from the ancient world to the present. All right. Having hearing no other question, I'll see you guys next week. We're going to talk about the final project. We're also going to discuss some of the topics, look at some of the readings and analyze them a little bit more for everybody to see what those readings intend to disclose. Okay?
No
All
problem.
right. Okay. Have a nice evening.
So, Professor, you will be posting the guidelines for the final project?
Yes, I'll be posting the guidelines after our class meet next week, and I will discuss them further for those who are not here today.
Um, Quick question. So the
Yeah.
the the link discussion, you didn't specify that we have to comment at least comment into on the two student in that
Uh, okay.
um
I think I specified that
yeah.
in the syllabus very clearly that for all discussions, you must comment on two other students.
Okay, got you. Got you.
Okay. All right.
No problem. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Then. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. Same to you. Thank
Thanks,